topic is From Despair to Hope. We know very well that Tish'a BeAb and Yud B'Tammuz that we just passed is a very challenging time for Am Yisrael, since in Tish'a BeAb, a moment of the biggest hope turned into despair, where Am Yisrael, unfortunately, in the time of the spies, came back and talked ill of Eretz Israel. And they were crying in their tents from fear and despair, because they thought they were coming to a place where they will be killed and there will be no hope and there will be no redemption. And therefore, Hashem told Am Yisrael, unfortunately, that this kind of crying is not just a testimony of that time, but it's going to be a reason for Am Yisrael to cry over this time again and again and again, because we turned something that was supposed to be hopeful into a destruction, a despair. So we know that it all started from there. Now, despite all that, Am Yisrael goes to Eretz Israel, and we're there for 410 years before the destruction of the first temple. Whoever prophesied about this time period is Jeremiah, the Navi Jeremiah, who sent his Megillah, his letters to the king Yoakim to tell him, you must change your ways. As we all know, Yoakim, it tells us that when Baruch ben Neriah read those notes, he ripped page after page after page, and says, I'm the king, I'm the king. That's what it tells us, that only one sentence, I'm the king. What does that signify for us? What is the problem? In the first temple, that was the problem. In the second temple, also took place in Tish'a BeAb. What was the problem then? That we couldn't be humble and understand that, yes, we are under the government of other kings, in this time, the Rome Empire, and we are to lower ourselves and behave in the autonomy that was given to us, and try to reform and transform into a better nation, the nation that God has asked from us to be a nation of peace, just, kindness, truth, that if we have focused on that, even under other kings, that maybe Hashem would have saved us and spared us from the calamity of the destruction. But we all know the reality. This didn't take place because there are groups of people who enjoyed fighting rather than striving for peace. And this calamity took place in Am Yisrael during this time. I want us to focus that whatever happened to Am Yisrael in Tish'a BeAb, which throughout the history, Beitar was destroyed during that time, and to some degree even the destruction of the Holocaust happened during that time as well. And we were warned, not just by Jeremiah, we were warned actually by Moshe Rabbeinu himself, that is explained to us that if we are not going to behave the proper way in Eretz Israel, which is a holy land, that the eyes of Hashem there from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, it's a special land that can take only people who strive for truth, just, and peace, and kindness. That's what the land can take. Otherwise, it cannot carry the people. So it says in Sefer Devarim, Parashat Ha'azinu, Perek Lamed Beh, it says that what will happen to Am Yisrael in Eretz Israel if they do not follow what Hashem is asked for them, that there's going to be Mezei Ra'av, Lechumei Reshef, Veketev Mirri, Veshen Behemot Ashalech Bam, Im Chamat Zochalei Afar. Seems to be that people are going to be walking hungry there's going to be a famine, and they will fight all the epidemics that will come after. And Ketev Meriri and Shen Behemot Ashalach Bam, which means many kinds of diseases will be sent there that will take over the people, and people will die from left and right. And this is during the time of Moshe Rabbeinu, who says in Parashat Ha'azinu to Am Yisrael, unfortunately, if you don't walk in the path of Hashem, that will take place. Now, about this Ketev Meriri, it's interesting that in Pshat, it means either that it's a poison, and or it's an arrow that will aim to the destruction of the temple. The Midrash, on the other hand, tells us something very interesting, that during the time of Ben HaMetzarim, between Yud Zayin B'Tammuz and Tish'a BeAb, Am Yisrael are to be very, very, very careful, because there is a very destructive energy that contains the air, and it's called Ketev Meriri. And the Gemara is telling us that it's like a shed mazik. Well, a shed is like, again, very hard to define today what is a shed, but it'd be like a very harmful energy. And the word that is used here is meriri. Meriri means bitter. Seems to me that because we were bitter during the time of the spies, and we cried for no reason, and we have shown how bitter we are over the future that might come to us, the energy that was created there is like haunting us again and again during this time, during the time of Ben HaMetzarim, between Yud Zayin B'Tammuz and Tish'a BeAb. Especially during, it says here, the middle of the day toward sunset. And BeShulchan Aruch, it says that we have to be really careful. It became a halacha that we have to be very careful not to walk alone during this time, and not to gather during this time, to stay home, to stay indoors. And it's interesting that even the Gemara goes into describing how does it look. It looks with many, many eyes, or it looks with one eye that goes into the heart, or it looks like a goat with a unicorn. Very interesting metaphors is being used. I have a hard time understanding what does it mean exactly. All I understand is that it is a true evidence that this time is not good for Am Yisrael at this point. But if we want to go into the place of hope, the same prophet, Jeremiah, and the same prophet who actually prophesies about the destruction is the one who has another prophecy. And the next prophecy is the prophecy of hope. And what is it that I want to concentrate today more on the hope side than the destructive side? Because I've already spoke about it before, all the lessons we are to take about the Churban, the destruction of the temple, how we are to pray better, transform ourselves, try to do teshuvah in an individual level, in a national level, and to believe that there is a hope for reformation and for redemption. So today I want to focus on what Zechariah said in Perek Chet, which is a reality we live today in Eretz Israel, and for me, it's Jerusalem. So it says there in Zechariah, Vayhi dvar Hashem tzvaot lemor. And the word of Hashem, the Lord, has been spoken to say, Ko amar Hashem. This is what Hashem said. I'm the one who has jealousy over Zion. Kineti leTzion. Kin'a gdola. Oh, my zealous was so great that it caused a whole destruction. V'chema gdola kineti la. And there was so much wrath and suffering during the time that I was showing my wrath to the land of Israel, to Zion. And then the Navi says, but it's over. When? Well, we all know, it must be said, that after the destruction of the first temple, Hashem said to the Navi, it's going to be only 70 years. But after the destruction of the second temple, it did not say how long it's going to be. And we know, as of today, that thousands of years, 2,000 of years and more, has passed from the destruction of the second temple, and Am Israel wasn't in Eretz Israel as a nation. But we all know we are now. So let's look what Zechariah said. Ko amar Hashem. This is what Hashem said. Shavti el Zion. I'm back. I've returned to Zion. V'shachanti betoch Yerushalayim. I'm going to dwell in Jerusalem. I'm going to be there. I'm going to help the building of Eretz Israel. And it is going to be called V'nikre'a Yerushalayim. Ir ha'emet. Jerusalem is going to be called the city of truth. V'har Hashem tzvaot, har HaKodesh. And when truth is going to be found in Yerushalayim, where people are going to strive to be honest and have a very high level of integrity and kindness and love and justice, then Har Hashem is going to be Har Hashem tzvaot, har HaKodesh. And then it says, Ko amar Hashem tzvaot. And this is what Hashem says. Again, the Navi says in the words of Hashem. Od yeshvu zkenim v'zkenot b'rchovot Yerushalayim. We are going to see many old men and old women walking in the streets of Jerusalem. Ve'ish mish'anto b'yado merov yamim. We're not talking just about old people in their 60s, 70s. We're talking about people who have a stick on their hands because they are so old. ורחובות העיר ימלאו ילדים וילדות משחקים ברחובותיה. And children, girls and boys are going to be found playing in the streets of Jerusalem, obviously, over all Eretz Israel. So these are words of hope. Now, for us, ladies and gentlemen, it's a reality. It's not just a prophecy. And therefore, we need to understand that we will never forget the past, because the past is the one who actually brings us close into not only the future, but to the present we are here. And that means that we are to learn from the lessons of the past, so we can live today as the prophets promised us, that there was going to be a reality, a new phenomena, where a God first goes back to Eretz Israel, and the Shekhinah goes back to Eretz Israel, because Shekhinah, as we all know, Hashem said to Jeremiah to tell the people, I'm going to be with you in Bavel, and I'm going to be with you with all the exiles, as we all know that Hashem said it even to Moshe. Hashem said to him, Ehyeh asher ehyeh. And Rashi tells us that Hashem told Moshe, I'm going to be with Am Israel in this diaspora, and I'm going to be in the future diaspora. And obviously Moshe says, not enough, they are now in exile. You want me to talk about their future exile? So Moshe only said, Yesh lachani, which means that it's almost like we know that there's going to be a whole future for Am Israel, a whole journey for Am Israel, that there's going to be a lot of correction and a journey to refine the nation and refine the individual at the end of days. And then we are here seeing that Zechariah is telling us, oh, this is what's going to happen. Am Israel is going to be in Eretz Israel, and there's going to be a government, and there's going to be a whole nation staying there. And then the pasuk says one more. Ko amar Hashem tzvaot. Tzom harevi'i. Tzom harevi'i. והחמישי יהיה לבית יהודה לששון ושמחה, למועדים טובים, והאמת והשלום אהבו. So the prophet continues to tell us that when we used to fast for thousands of years, the Tzom of Yud Zayin B'Tammuz and the Tzom of Tish'a BeAb, the fast of Tish'a BeAb, is going to be to Am Israel a time for rejoicement, a time for gladness, a time for good occasions and good holidays. And what will take place among Am Yisrael is that they will have internalized the concept of truth and love. Truth and peace. Means if a person understands that the best thing is to be transparent. The best thing is just to be direct. The best thing is just not to judge, to give everyone the benefit of the doubt. The best thing is to strive for peace. And peace means that we compromise. Peace means we sacrifice. Peace means we're not going for the petty. Remember what Yoakim said to Baruch ben Neriah when he read the letter? What did he say? I am the king. Means the ego took place. What we are trying to understand is that we are to learn from our past to understand that we are to strive to become more selfless. People who care for one another. People who share their love and their joy and their rejoicements. And that it is something that has been internalized in the individual and in the nation-wise. And there is no being foreigner to one another, trying to be far and distant and removed and not caring, or in a revengeful place. Hashem says, no, no more. No more of that. We are turning into a new era, a new page in the history of the world and of Am Yisrael. And the prophet is telling us that that's what's going to happen. Now you tell me, ladies and gentlemen, if we don't have it in Eretz Yisrael, it's the place where Ki mitzion tetzeh Torah udvar Hashem Yerushalayim. This is the place where all the Torah, the true Torah, Talmidei Chachamim and Talmidim, and we have students who come from New York to Jerusalem to expand their knowledge in Torah and then to bring it back here to the diaspora and feed and to let the thirsty people know the words of truth. Tell me if it's not a reality in Am Yisrael, that so many yeshivot, so many Talmidei Chachamim, so many students, and people are walking in the streets of Jerusalem, and children are playing in the streets of Jerusalem. We are now more 60,000 or 400. We are 7 million Jews in Eretz Israel, and there are so many more that will come because Hashem promised that He will bring back all the Jews from all the diaspora. We just pray and hope that Hashem is going to bring us with joy, with gladness, with songs, that it will be so easy for Am Yisrael to go back to Eretz Israel. We're not going to go no more from suffering, but from a place of love and commitment and striving to be in the Shekhinah with Am Yisrael in Eretz Israel. Our goal now is to build Bet HaMikdash. And in order for Bet HaMikdash to be built, we need to ask for it. We need to want it. Remember what it says in Mitzrayim, Vayishma Hashem et za'akatam. Hashem showed and heard their crying. Hashem is waiting to hear our singing. It's going to be a cry of gladness, a cry of joy that we know we want to go back to Eretz Israel and to build Bet HaMikdash and to see Mashiach. As we all know, we want Mashiach now, we keep saying. So I pray for all Am Yisrael that we are going to speed the prophecy saying, Ko amar Hashem tzvaot, tzom הרביעי והחמישי יהיה לבית ישראל, לבית יהודה, לששון ושמחה. It's going to be a time of gladness, a time of joy. And truth and peace will be what comes from our mouth.